This is Geometry Lesson 1-1, Nets and Drawings for Visualizing Geometry. The objective for this lesson is that you will be able to make nets and drawings of three-dimensional figures. So let's begin. All the blanks up there, make sure you get those three words filled in. Net, fold, and net. A net is a two-dimensional diagram that you can then fold to form a three-dimensional figure. A net shows all of a figure in one view. So it's if you cut all the edges of a shape or almost all the edges of a shape and just lay it out flat. So here we have a net and a cube. It says the net below folds into the cube shown. Beside it, which letters will be on the top and front of the cube? So we can see every single face on the net is labeled, but on the cube we only have one face labeled, and that face is extremely important. It's a D. And if you look, it's a regular D, how it's all labeled. So you want to kind of find out where that D is in the net. There you go. And we're trying to find the top and the front. I would start with trying to find the front. The reason being, if you look, that is going to be what's right next to the D on the net. So if you look at the net, what's right next to the D and the long part of the D, right behind it is the C, which means that when you fold it all up, the C is going to end up there as well. So what I'd like you to do now is to pause the video and find out what the top is on your own and then check with my work. As you can see, I determined that the top is an E because if you look, the top's going to be what's ever directly above the C and the D, but what's directly above the C is going to actually be that E. All right, so this next problem uses the net and the cube above, but it's going to switch the letter that you can see on the cube a little bit. It says if we use C as the right of the cube, so instead of being a D right here, we're actually going to have a C. What letter will be on the top and what letter will be on the front? I'd like you to pause the video now and try this on your own. All right, I determined the top letter will be the E and the front side will be the B. Reasoning being the C is a regular orientation up and down, and right next to it is going to be that B because that's what's right next to it in the net. And then whatever's above the B and the C, and that is what's going to be on the top of our cube. And we already knew from the last problem that directly above the C is actually the letter E. You can even see that that orientation is going to be sideways with that E right there. So let's move on to drawing some nets on our own. It says, what is a net for the graham cracker box below? Label your net with dimensions. So let's start with drawing the net. As you can see in this graham cracker box, we can see three shapes. We have a rectangle here. So we know we're going to have that in our net. And if you look above it, there's another shape, and it's actually a parallelogram up there, but I'm going to draw it like a rectangle for the most part, so it lines up with my net over here. That's where that goes when you unfold it. And then we're going to have another rectangle here. I'm going to just line it up right there and drag it over as well. Now, if you were to fold up those three shapes together, you're not going to make a whole graham cracker box because there's more than what you can see. If you remember, there's a front of the graham cracker box, but also there's going to be a back. And the back should line up and be exactly the same as the front. And so when you think about that, that's going to be that blue rectangle I just drew. And where's that going to line up? Well, you can see that it lines up over here on this right edge with this side, which we have in red over in our net. So we're going to line that up in our drawing, just like that. Well, the box has a top, but if it has a top, it must also have a bottom if it's a closed shape. So there's your bottom. If you notice, the bottom is lined up with both the front and the back. So we're going to need to line it up with at least one of those in our figure. It looks like we can only line it up with one. So we have a top, a front, a bottom, and a back. But we also originally had the right side over here in red. Well, opposite the right side is also going to be the left side. And that's going to line up in our net. So our net should end up looking something like this. The next thing we want to do is put in those measurements for all of those sides. You can see that they give us three measurements, and those ones are pretty easy to put into our net to begin with. We know that that front face, that it's 20 centimeters tall, so we can put that in, 20 centimeters. And the bottom of the front face is 14 centimeters, which is going to be right there. And then we know that this little side, right side, is 6 centimeters. So we can put that in there as well. Now, all the other sides currently are not labeled, but they actually, from all this information, we can label them as well because there's a few things you need to know about rectangles. One thing we'll prove eventually is that opposite sides are congruent. So if you look, In this blue rectangle, one side is 20 centimeters, so its opposite side is also 20 centimeters. Which means that in that red rectangle, that's 20 centimeters, so the opposite side is also 20 centimeters, which is the side of that blue, which means the opposite side is 20 centimeters. And we can also make that same connection over here. So all of those long segments are all going to be 20 centimeters. Now let's look at some of these other sides. We have 14 centimeters down here on the bottom of that blue face. Well, the opposite side is also going to be 14 centimeters right there. And if you look in the blue rectangle, we know three sides, 20, 20, and 14, which means the third side has to be a 14, which means above it's also a 14. Those are the pretty basic ones to find. Now we have these little sides here and here and here and here and here. And so if we have 6 centimeters, well, if you fold that up, it's going to line up over here, so both of those are going to be 6 centimeters. Look at this red rectangle. Opposite side needs to be 6. It's going to line up with this opposite side right there, which is also going to be 6 then. If this side right here is 6, the opposite side is also 6, which is going to line up over here on this red one and make that 6. Follow that down to the opposite side, which has to be 6, which is going to line up with this green side, which is also 6. So you have almost every single side length known except for these two over in the blue rectangle. If you look at them, they're not going to fold up with the 6, but they're going to fold up all the way over with the 14. So they're going to be 14 centimeters each. So that is drawing a basic net and labeling your measurements. I'd like you to now pause the video and draw the net for the figure below and label it with its dimensions. If you want to draw your net and then check it with mine, I'll pause the video, draw my net, and then you can check it, and then when you're done getting all your measurements in, check it again. So please pause the video now, draw your net, press play on the video, check it again, pause it, draw in your measurements, and then press play again. Here you can see my unlabeled net. Yours might look slightly different. Just make sure that you only have 2 triangles and you're going to have 3 rectangles, 2 of the same size and one that's different. Pause the video again and then put in your dimensions. Now take the time to check your measurements with mine, and once you finish that, we will end this video.